What does it mean to live more with less? I'm Katie Wells, and welcome to the Maximized Minimalist Podcast. If you found yourself caught up in the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood and want to rewrite the script, congratulations, you're in the right place. I'm here to be your guide and help you take back your motherhood and achieve a simpler, more joy-filled life. Cheers to being a maximized minimalist. Enjoy the show. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. You open up your closet, you see clothes that you used to fit into, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel defeated. But what if letting them go wasn't about giving up, but about making space for more ease and self-acceptance? That's exactly what our simplifier of the week, Jen, did recently, and I love how she tackled it. She said she finally cleared out her too small for my today body clothes. She listed some, she donated others, and now she has more space, ease, and freedom in her closet. And this is such a powerful reminder that decluttering isn't about loss. It's about gaining freedom. So way to go, Jen. And friend, I'd love to feature you for our next Simplifier of the Week. Maybe you've decluttered a drawer, said no to a purchase you didn't need, or feel lighter because of that mindset shift. I want to hear your story. Head to katiejoywells.com/simplifier to share with us. And I can't wait to hear about your wins. So hearing Jen's story got me thinking, how many of us are holding on to things not because we actually use them, but because of who we'd hoped we'd become by owning them? We all have those things. I'm raising two hands. The ones we swore would transform us. The running shoes we bought for the 5K or the half marathon we were meant to train for 5 years ago. The art supplies for that creative hobby we thought we'd start years ago. The other art supplies you bought because you're going to finally start painting. The gym equipment so we could finally get fit. You get the idea. And here's the thing with these types of items. When they sit there unused, just like Jen's clothes, they not only don't inspire us, they weigh us down. And instead of representing possibility, which they represented when we bought those items, now they become reminders of our failures, of what we haven't done. And that guilt, that comes with keeping those items, it is so sneaky. It tells us that letting go of that item means you gave up, when in reality, it means making space for the life we're living. And it's tricky and nuanced and layered, as I always say, because these aren't just things. We tend to struggle to let go of them because they represent something bigger, a version of ourselves we thought we'd become. The fit person, the creative person, the gourmet chef, the gracious host. And the tricky part is, again, if they aren't motivating us, what do? Those silent reminders of what we haven't done become so heavy. And the guilt, like I said, and this is what I call aspirational clutter, because it represents of who we wish we were, or maybe who we wanted to be at some point. And heck, it could even be, hey, I wish I were that person right now still. This is a current dream of mine. And today we're going to unpack why it's so hard to let go. And most importantly, how you can release it without white knuckling or forcing your way through the process. Okay, let's talk about why aspirational clutter feels so much harder to part with than other, we'll call it superficial, surface level clutter, the easy quote unquote clutter, even scarcity clutter. Aspirational clutter can feel like giving up on a dream, letting go of those art supplies where you visualize yourself painting and being happy and having moments to yourself and this, that. Like, again, we all have these goals. Or donating the workout gear can feel like admitting you're never going to become that person. And it feels so personal. It's tied to our identity. It's representative of who we want or wanted to be. Letting go of that can feel like losing a piece of ourselves. It's the human aspect, right? I always say we talk about that stuff on this show. Like, we're not shying away, and I'm not promising like follow this 4-step checklist and then like all of a sudden you won't have human emotions and be attached to stuff. It's nuanced, but it's possible. The sunk cost fallacy, you've heard me talk about that. Because we've spent money on some of these things, getting rid can feel like a waste. But the real waste is letting the item take up space physically and mentally without serving us. And then, of course, you have fear of regret someday, right? Well, what if suddenly you have time for that hobby? What if you finally get the motivation to run that 5K or that half marathon? These what ifs keep us holding on, even when the reality is that maybe years have passed without action. As always, no judgment here. I am the same way. I want to tell you about my cookbook phase. Okay, this is a long time ago. Katie, not even 1.0. Katie 0.05 was my iteration at that time. I bought a beautiful glossy, I must have been 20, 22 years old, like newly married. And I was like, oh, well, because I'm a married woman now, I want to learn how to cook. And I bought this beautiful glossy hardcover cookbook, the kind with the stunning food photography and like elegant fonts and recipes that made every dish look like a masterpiece. And I subconsciously convinced myself that this cookbook was the thing that would not only teach me how to cook, but would make me love cooking. Maybe I'd become the type of person who planned elaborate meals. I pictured hosting these charming dinner parties for friends who didn't even exist. This is what we do, right? And I effortlessly whipped up gourmet dishes in my dreams when I'm holding this cookbook, right? With fresh herbs I'd snip from my kitchen garden, a la Martha Stewart, right? And for a while, just owning the book made me feel closer to that reality. I imagined flipping through it, inspired by all the possibilities, gleefully preparing a 3-course meal for my husband, plating it beautifully, and looking happy while doing it, just like the chef on the cookbook cover. But here's what actually happened. I bet you can guess. That cookbook sat on my counter for months, even had a pretty cookbook stand. So I was like, oh, I'll use it if I see it on the counter, right? No, it sat on my counter for months. And then what happened? After about 6 months, the guilt of not using it really started to get heavy. And I was like, well, I'm not using this right now, but I don't want to declutter it. So I moved it into a cupboard. Now it's quote unquote out of sight, out of mind. And then I move it to another cupboard, and then it just lived there collecting dust. And every time I opened that cupboard and saw it, I felt a twinge of shame. Oh my gosh, I should use that. Oh, I'm such a failure. Oh, I promised myself I'd use this cookbook and I'm not using it. Oh my God, I can't believe I paid $40 for this and I haven't followed through. Any of this sounding familiar? And at first, I told myself I was keeping the cookbook, not because of what it represented, because I didn't know that yet. It was because of the money. I said, well, this costs $40, so I'm not going to declutter this or donate it. And that seemed like a reasonable excuse. But in true simplifier fashions, we have to get to the root. And there was more root to pull, because deep down for me, I knew it wasn't really about the money, but it took self-reflection and honesty on my part. And speaking honesty, let's all be honest. We've all probably wasted $40 on things that we didn't think twice about. Maybe a meal you didn't love, a sweater you wore once, random Amazon buys. So why was this cookbook so hard for me to let go of? Because the cookbook wasn't just a book. It was a symbol of the person I thought I should be. Letting go of the book wasn't decluttering a book. It felt like admitting something deeper, like I'm not that person. I'm not Martha Stewart. I don't actually love cooking, and maybe I never will. And that felt so uncomfortable. So what changed? Instead of fixating on the cost of the book, I asked myself, what is this actually costing me to keep? Remember, every time I saw it, it cost me mental energy, a reminder of what I wasn't doing and who I hadn't become. It cost me guilt because the book sat there collecting dust instead of me putting it to use. And it cost me space in my cupboard and also in my mind. And the biggest shift was that I realized that letting go of it wasn't a failure, it was freedom. When we struggle to let go of our things, we usually have to start with the belief. Declutter the belief, and then you'll be able to declutter the thing. My belief was that I actually didn't need to become a different person in order to like myself more. And I tear up as I say this. We all do this. And I'm not saying all aspirational versions of ourselves are silly. I mean, they're important. It's important to have these, I think. But I realized, I don't need to change myself. I don't need to force myself to like cooking. It's never going to happen, number one. And number two, even if I did love cooking, I don't want to spend time cooking these big elaborate meals. I like my one pot sheet pan dinners. Come on, and I had tied my worth to the idea that I should become this new gourmet chef. And the truth, I didn't need to become someone else to be worthy. And this is the root of it. This is the heart of it. I didn't need to force myself into a version of life that didn't fit me. To truly let go, I had to go beyond the surface. I had to confront the beliefs and identities tied to it and questioned whether they still served me. More than freeing up space in my home, it was freeing myself from the emotional weight it carried, the guilt and shame. That's the power of getting to the root of it. When we stop holding on to things that don't align with who we really are in this season of life, we don't just gain space in our homes, we gain clarity, we gain confidence, we gain self-assuredness, we gain permission, just like Jen, just like me with our cookbook, just like you. We give ourselves permission to be ourselves. And y'all, that is okay. That is okay. You are enough as you are. You don't need to become someone completely different. And that's worth far more than any cookbook. Now, here's the thing, because a lot of people will hear me talk about aspirational clutter and go, oh gosh, I have so much aspirational clutter. Like, I don't think you need to get rid of all aspirational items. Like I said, we all have hopes and dreams. Maybe it's for you, it's you want to read more, you want to draw more, you want to do X, Y, Z. So naturally, when we have goals, we have the things that we need in order to execute said tasks and goals. So I want to remind you that aspirational items should feel like an invitation, not an obligation. If you have an item that inspires you when you see it and fits into your life without giving you guilt or grief or shame, then it's likely worth keeping. But if an item like that cookbook, for me, feels like a constant reminder of what you haven't done, it's probably time to reconsider and do a little root reflection work on the belief you've given that item. Okay, because here's the thing. Did I say I got rid of every single cookbook I owned? No, I didn't. I still have cookbooks. Do I use them every day? No, but I use them consistently. And they feel like an invitation, not an obligation. So how do you start to let go of this aspirational clutter without that nagging feeling of guilt or failure or overwhelm? Here's some really 4 simple steps to start. Number 1, ask yourself, does this fit my life now? Does it fit my life now? Maybe it did once, but also seasons change, goals change. If it doesn't align with your reality, it's okay to release it. I had to do this with a pair of running shoes many years ago. I bought running shoes with the intention of, at some point, running a marathon. I was like, yeah, dude, let's do this. My husband and I were like all about it. And then I became a mom and I was like, oh, guess I don't have time to do this anymore. That wasn't the only thing, but very quickly my priorities changed. And those running shoes, they were not making me feel good every time I saw them in my closet. They were a reminder of my hopes and dreams being, squashed due to my current reality and priorities. And instead of saying, oh man, letting go of these running shoes means I'm a failure. It means I'll never run a 5K or a marathon. It means I'll never reach these hopes and dreams. Instead, I said, it's not never, it's just not now. And that was so powerful, especially, and I know so many of you can relate, whether you're a mom or not, we have these different seasons where it's like, dang, life is hard right now. Life is overwhelming. Maybe it's really busy. Maybe you just have so much on your plate. To shift that and just say, hey, I'm not saying I'll never do these things or hobbies or use this equipment, but it's not serving me now. Doesn't mean not ever again. And reframing this letting go, it doesn't mean you're giving up. You're making room for what matters in your life today. What, who, all those things. Honor the dream without the clutter. If an item represents a past dream, just like I did, acknowledge it. Sometimes it's a dream that you're like, just like I said, do I want to run a marathon now? Not really. I still don't. That dream didn't come back to me. And I'm okay with that. I know maybe it will in 5 years. That's great. But if you have an item where you're like, oh, this is still a dream of mine, maybe you take a picture, maybe you write a note about why it mattered to you, and then you donate it, and then you let it go. Trust me, I am confident you will feel pretty good and focus on the future you want to create instead of holding on to things for a future or for a version of yourself that no longer fits, shift your energy toward building the life you want now, maybe in the immediate short term. Letting it go isn't about losing something. It's about choosing what supports you in this season of life. And boy, don't we have so many seasons of life. So, friend, here's your quick win challenge. I try to do these on most of my solo episodes for you. Find one piece of aspirational clutter in your home. Maybe it's an old hobby, a stack of books, something in your closet. I know you're thinking of something. And ask yourself, does this still align with my current season of life? Does it feel like an invitation or an obligation? Is it creating that guilt and shame, or is it feeling inspiring? And if it no longer serves you, let it go. And if you do, I'd love to hear about it. Friend, letting go of aspirational clutter, I can't stress this enough. It's not about giving up. It's creating space for the life you are living. And we only get one, don't we? So if this episode resonated with you, make sure to sign up for my Ready, Set, Simplify newsletter. Each week, I send actionable tips to help you simplify not just your home, but the stories you tell yourself about your stuff. And don't forget to submit your Simplifier of the Week message to me at katiejoywells.com/simplifier. You know what to do, my friend. Ready, Set, Simplify. Bye.